All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome. My name is Gil Lipaz. I am the current president of the Red Star Pilots Association. And today we have the pleasure of doing a webinar or an interview for you guys with a couple of guys that I consider my friends. Mark Flex McKinnon is on with us, and he's actually recording from his room in Chicago, working his flight schedule. And Pete Pester Hooper is calling us from his home in San Diego, but he's about to get on a flight early in the morning to do a trip himself. So welcome, guys.
Hey, thanks.
Thank you very much.
With me. Thank you. The title of this series that we're starting is So There I Was, and it's just an opportunity for us to tell stories, partially true, hopefully a lot true, about situations that we've been in and where we can all learn from them. So this is a story that I think is very interesting and that I think has some great lessons. So I'd love to kick it off with you guys. And Mark, why don't you lead us off and tell us a little bit about this story, and let's get through the lessons of it with the two of you.
Okay, sounds good. I'll start out with a little background on me, just a short bio. 20-year F-15 guy, 3,000 hours in F-15s, mission commander, Gulf War kind of stuff. Now an airline captain for UPS. And let me kind of set the scenario here. And before we even go into it, I want to put out the disclaimer that there are no heroes here. There's some very good lessons learned. All the mistakes that were made here were mine because I'm the backseat safety, quote unquote, safety observer for this flight.
Thanks, Flex.
Yeah.
So why don't you introduce your front seater and before you go on with the story and let him give his bio as well.
And Pete Hooper here was the guy up front, and I'll let him kind of introduce himself.
10-year Navy guy, F-14s, a little bit F-18 time, now first officer at United Airlines on the 787. We were just doing a pre-buy on the airplane, taking a look at it, and then over to you, Flex.
Okay, so the way the scenario goes, as you know, every accident has a chain of events. And in this case, it was a potential accident that had a chain of events. And we're going to describe that chain of events to help you realize how the almost accident happened and what we did and how lucky we were to get through it. So the scenario starts with, as Pete mentioned, he was interested in buying the airplane you see in the background, which has the tail number 666 Yankee Kilo. We called it the Devil plane. It was one of the spares that we had for our 5-ship formation demonstration team. Pete was interested in it, so I had him jump in the back seat. I said, hey, come on out for a 5-ship practice. We'll put you in the back. You can see what we do. Pete's interested in joining the team and see if it's something that you're interested in. And I said, after we fly, we'll land, we'll fuel the thing up, and we'll swap seats. We'll go out single ship. You can try this thing out, see if it's something you're interested in. So Pete says, good to go. So to start the scenario, back on the 5-ship practice, I'm having problems with the microphone in my helmet. And I'd ordered a new mic, but it hadn't showed up yet. So I thought, well, we're not going to do anything really radical. So, first link in the chain was we're just going to wear David Clark headsets. We don't need the helmets. No big deal, right? So here we go. As most of you know, every one of these yaks being experimental, you can set up the instrumentation any way that fits your fancy. In this airplane, in the front cockpit, Pete's looking at kilometers, which most of us fly in, and he's got an American altimeter. In the back cockpit, I've got miles per hour, and I've got a metric altimeter. So with the metric altimeter, no hectopascals available. The only thing I could think to do is zero my altimeter, and I go, hey, triple that, meters to feet. That's how high we are above the ground. That's the important thing to know. So that's number 2 in the link of this chain that, fortunately, we were able to break. The third thing that happens is, since Pete has never flown the yak, as you know, the start procedure can be kind of involved. So I thought, okay, I'm going to kneel here on the wing and I'm going to walk him through the start procedure. No big deal. Pete gets the airplane started and kneeling on the wing and go, okay, I'm going to go jump in the back. Well, I go to jump in the back and When I look at the shoulder harnesses, the cotter pin that holds the shoulder part harnesses together, there's a pin and then a cotter pin. The cotter pin was gone and the pin for the shoulder harness is just hanging there. I'm looking around going, shit, the airplane's running. We need to get on with this. So I go, well, we're not going to do anything really radical. So number 3 in the chain is I pulled the pin out of the shoulder harnesses, rolled them up, and threw them in the baggage compartment. We aren't going to need those. So you can kind of see where we're going here. So all I've got now is a lap belt. And off we go. We do a few bounces. Those are fine. We go out. And now we're doing aerobatics and trying out the airplane. And Pete says to me, he goes, hey, I'd like to try a hammerhead. And I go, that's the one thing, if you mess it up, we can get us into some trouble, an accelerated spin, upright or inverted. And I want to give some credit here to, I believe it was Savarise's article on Spins Unspun that you can find. He's down in Alabama.
Yeah, Dennis Savarese.
Yeah, Dennis Savarese. I read that article a long time ago, and that becomes important in this scenario here in just a little bit. And I suggested if you haven't read it before you buy or fly one of these things, you do that.
I recommend that.
Yeah, so that was important. So I go, let me demo one. So we go, okay, here we go, up the up line, get our speed, 3G pull up the up line. Here we go, down the down line. Okay, you got it? Yep, I got it. Now the accident chain accelerates. So as Pete's diving in to get his airspeed, I remember looking at the altimeter going, 1,200 meters, 3,600 feet above the ground. We're kind of low here. Hopefully everything's, no big deal. Well, being as though I've only got this David Clark on, when Pete pulls into the vertical, he does a 5G pull, a little more than normal, but no big deal. But when that happens, my headset falls down off my head and onto my shoulders. So my natural reaction was to lean forward to get the headset. And as I'm doing that, I'm starting to bring my headset back up. I notice out of the corner of my eye, I see 1,500 meters, 4,500 feet. And just as I'm getting the headset just about back on, I notice that we've gone past the vertical and we're getting on our back. And at that point, to this day, I can't tell you what happened or what triggered this, but instantly it was like somebody flipped a switch and the airplane is spinning radically, extremely eye-watering speed. Can't read any gauges, nothing. I remember looking down and thinking, okay, we're in a spin of some kind, but because I have no shoulder harness now my head's up against the canopy. I can see the periphery, but I cannot see more than just Pete's back. So I can't tell you, I can't put my head up and go, okay, left spin, right spin, whatever. But I know we're in trouble. And I remember thinking to myself, come on, hero, what are you going to do? And once again, no idea whether, I'm looking at the
And when you're saying hero, you're thinking of the guy in the front seat, right?
Guy in the front, yeah.
Let's
I'm
pause there just for a second so we can
Sure.
start where my background is. So,
Yeah.
Counting major. I always say that. Hey, I was a counting major. So I haven't flown a prop airplane since T-34 Charlie days back in the Navy, and I had 0 hours before I joined the Navy. So I went, just a regular pipeline through the Navy and F-14s, F-18s. Hadn't spun an airplane since T-2s in the training command. So it's been several years and hadn't flown anything since except for an airliner where you're afraid to turn the autopilots off and the auto throttles. Not really, but you shouldn't be, but they are. So as I go, hey, I want to go do a hammerhead because it simulates a pirouette. You used to fight the Tomcat all the time, drop my nose low, they go down here with the airplane, you're pointing at them, it's kind of aggressive. So, hey, let's go do a hammerhead, sounds like fun. Altitudes, don't know. Airspeeds, don't know. But I know when it gets slow to stomp on the rudder and it will then flip over. So as I pull in the vertical, Flex loses his headset and the airplane then immediately, as soon as I stomp on the rudder, the airplane goes inverted flat, left rotation.
So that's all information that would have been nice to know. And that's part of the lessons learned too is, make sure you interview the guy you're flying with a little bit more deeply and learn his experience, because that would have helped me be more on guard. And once again, I'm the guy in the back that's the safety guy. So as soon as this thing, like I said, it's like someone snapped their fingers and this thing's spinning. My head's up against canopy. I'm kind of leaning to the right and I can see the periphery and I know we're spinning like crazy. Looking at the turn needle, Can't see any of that. It's eyeballs out rotation rate. It's it's only the second time I've ever seen that. And I go, okay, we're in an accelerated flat spin. It's either upright or inverted, but I can't tell you if it's upright, inverted, left or right. No idea. And the best thing that Pete did at that point, because now I've lost my headset, I've lost my hat, I've lost my sunglasses. He's done the same. There's now no comm between us. We don't know who's doing what. His hands go up. Best thing he could have done, because that just reemphasizes the shake the stick, I got it kind of thing. What if you can't talk? His hands go up, and I go, shit, he doesn't know what to do. And I'm like, I have no idea. And this is the most important part of this this whole thing is, I go, okay, I know we're spinning. It's eyeballs out. We're in trouble because we're at 4,500 feet above the ground. Last glance I had at the altimeter. And if we're going to practice these, we do these at 9,000 to 10,000 AGL, not at 4,500 feet. So we don't have much time. So now I'm going, okay, which way are we spinning? I don't know. The only thing that came to me, where it came from, I don't know. It just kind of popped in my head. I go, okay, I'm being pushed up and right. We got to be spinning left. So step on the right rudder. And what I take away from this is all the thinking taken out of it. Step on your body. Even if you're strapped in tight, if there's a force pushing you a certain direction, that's the way that's your opposite rudder. Okay, so if I'm being pushed to the right, we have to be spinning left. And once again, this all came to me, and God knows where it came from. I call it war, brought out of rectal extraction. So I cram in the right rudder, and then thinking I've got the opposite rudder, and then the airplane starts to spin faster. And that's where the Savarese article comes in. In that article, he states that if you get into an accelerated flat spin, upright or inverted, when you hit the proper rudder, the opposite rudder, it will accelerate the spin rate for 1 to 2 turns. And I almost swapped rudders, and I thought, no, don't do that. You do have the proper rudder. Now I'm going, okay, are we inverted or are we upright? I don't know. Obviously, if we're upright, it's a push forward. If we're inverted, it's a pull back. But instead, I took the stick, put it in neutral, all the left aileron, and the thing stopped spinning. When it stopped spinning, we're now in a 60-degree nose low attitude, inverted. Roll over, pull out 300 meters, 900 feet above the ground, 3-4 seconds to impact. And I remember climbing back out thinking, holy shit, what was that? We get all of our stuff back on, and we start talking to each other, and they're like, what was that? What was that? Why? So I believe that was an accelerated inverted flat spin. And so we climb back up and we try to repeat it. And I think Pete at that point was probably a little reluctant to keep repeating it, but we could not get it to repeat. We could not get it to do that. It would spin, but we couldn't get it into an accelerated flat spin.
So
go ahead.
Did you go immediately back up, or did you land and go back up?
No, we went immediately back up.
Okay.
Try to get back on the horse you fell off of. So we're now going up to 9,000 feet to try this out.
Got it.
3 attempts, couldn't get it to repeat. It could spin, but it wouldn't accelerate like that. Had no idea. Was it the right combination of fuel, people? Who knows? No one can explain it. But the biggest lesson learned and the takeaway from this is we all know, and we've all been there, where it's like, okay, close your eyes, open your eyes, what have you got, right? Well, in this case, it was, I have no idea what I've got. And if you and I go out and we're going to go spin, and we go, hey, we're going to do an accelerated inverted flat spin, we already know in our mind how we're going to recover from it. Before we even start it, it's pre-programmed to us. But what if you don't know? And that was the case here. So the takeaway, and the most important thing that I want to pass on to everyone, is take all the thinking out of it. Step on your body. That's the opposite rudder. So once again, I'm strapped in tight. There will be a force one way or the other when you're spinning. If that force is to the right, that's the opposite rudder. Step on your body and believe in it, okay? Don't sit there and go, okay, well, I'm spinning left. No, you don't have time. It's just, you have to react. I went back after the fact and I read the Staudiker book. I read the Pitts book. I read all the aerobatic airplanes I could find. But what do you do if you don't know? And none of them could tell me. A week after this incident, word got out. I got a call from the Navy test pilot school, F-18 guy, and said it's ingenious. He goes, I want you to write a safety article on that. Step on your body. Simple. No thinking required. Afterwards, we get back on the ground, and Pester and I are kind of happy that we're still there, and we talk about what our feelings were. And I remember everything slowed down, and it was like, I wonder, is this it? Is this how it is? And Pete, what was your thought?
Well, one of my proudest moments, put my hands up in the air. Luckily, I have the second greatest fighter pilot in the world in the back seat. So we're in good shape. We already know who the first, the greatest fighter pilot is. And so, yeah, not my proudest moment, but hey, I got no choice. I mean, I don't know what I've got. I've never seen anything like it. So hands are up, and I remember spinning, and I knew we were spinning left, and I knew we were inverted because I'm looking down at the ground going, I wonder if this is going to hurt. So, good on flex. I mean, obviously it's like, and it's been fun ever since, and it's all really, really cool. We take the airplane back up, we try to spin some more. That's typical what we would expect from Mark McKinnon. And so that was awesome. But also, so we took up a few months later, we ended up with Gennady. So we didn't buy that airplane, but we bought another one. So we went up with Gennady, and Gennady has 5,400 hours in Yak. And we tried to replicate that. We tried to duplicate it.
Yeah, so it's Gennady Alfimov.
Thank you.
Right?
Yeah.
The DOSAF pilot. Yeah, go ahead.
So, yeah, it's Gennady, whatever. He's got a last name. I didn't know that. But anyway, we tried it with a 3-bladed prop. We tried it with a 2-bladed prop. We tried it full aft. We tried it every other way, and we could not get it to replicate. I go to work at United. A friend of mine, Andy Dees, is there, and he goes, he lost 2 friends, exact same thing. Low altitude, Yak 52, trying to do hammerheads. And now the lesson that I've learned later on, anytime that thing cracks past, the vertical, pull the throttles to idle, pull the throttle to idle and hold on. Because if you don't have that yawing moment driven by the, E factor, it won't drive it into an accelerated flat spin. But, but hey, flex going through all the stuff. Anything happened different. If I tried to recover, we're dead.
No. And that's once again, a couple, just to reemphasize the important thing, the hands up was critical, because that told me that now you, dummy in the back, you need to figure something out. Secondly, stepping back to another lesson learned, as I was getting that headset to my head and I saw that we were past the horizon, all I had to do is shake the stick and take the airplane from him. And if I had just retarded the throttle to idle, neutralized the controls, and waited, there's no demand on the airplane, it can't stall. What'll happen? It'll run out of airspeed. It'll start to tail slide. The big heavy thing on the front, the engine, will eventually point towards the ground. You fly out of it. So that was the second thing. Was my mistake was letting it go too far, because once again, I'd never talked to Pete about his experience and where he was at and how often he's spun. So I just assumed he had this like no big deal. But once again, that don't think about it, just step on your body. It's so easy. It's such a no-brainer. And I'm the kind of guy that needs no-brainers, especially at a time like that.
So let me interject. Here's my takeaway, and I love this story because, one, it sends shivers through me because, it could have been much worse, obviously. And, thank God it wasn't. But it also gives me the shivers because it's the kind of thing that could happen to any of us. You guys have thousands of hours, jet time, fighter time between the two of you. And, and we're all kind of these type A personality pilots. A lot of us are. And so for me, it's less, this story now, because you survived, of course, thank God, is less about the incident than the things that kind of led up to it, which is where we can all learn lessons. So of course, the big lesson, Flex, that you impart to us is, if you get into that situation you don't know, step on the body, which is a great hint for us. All other things being aside, that you can't tell the direction of the spin. But how do we prevent ourselves from going through these little number one thing that went wrong, number two thing that went wrong, number three, but what the hell could possibly go wrong up there to cause all those things to be a problem? So talk just a little more, if you will, just the two of you emphasizing the crew coordination, because I think that's a lesson for us. I think the pin on the shoulder straps, what are we going to need those for? The helmet, David Clark's are generally fine until we realize that they're not. Walk us through that.
If you're going to do anything aggressive, you need something that's going to stay on your head, whether it's a helmet, a David Clark with the strap, hey, something. But just a set of David Clark probably is not going to cut it for, anything that we're going to do. We were fighting the airplane also. So, it wasn't totally benign.
Yeah. It's, well, and that, once again, step back, and when the change starts to happen, and at the time we didn't realize that we were in that chain, but lots of nice stuff learned now. And there are, as Gil pointed out, there's been at least one, maybe two highly experienced people that have spun these things into the ground.
Absolutely.
And I don't want to scare anybody away from the yak, because one, it's extremely difficult to get it into that regime. But just recall that, when and if you get there, it's not one of those airplanes that you can neutralize the controls and it's just going to come out. It's not going to happen. You need opposite rudder. You need aileron into the spin. So every spin that you practice, even though the airplane's going to recover very quickly, always practice, just like Gennady does, opposite forward neutral, opposite forward neutral. Hammer that into your head, so that the day ever comes, it just naturally happens. It comes, you just do it without thinking about it.
And so I would imagine that a lot of pilots who've done spin training, the first thing they're going to be thinking of, power, right? We pull out the power, and then opposite forward neutral. Did you feel like did you remember pulling out the power? Would you have not? Why wouldn't you have? And this is
Never
just
pulled,
poking at you.
Never pulled the power out, never had time to think about it, because there's so many other things going on. The only time I thought about it, and the power was set at 82% and full throttle, right? Some will argue, yes, you need to pull the power out. Others will argue, well, you need the airflow from the prop over the rudder in order for the rudder to be effective. Don't know. And once again, we left the power where it was. By the time we recovered, it's like, oh yeah, power wasn't even a thought, because the thought was, we're spinning towards the ground in a hurry, and this is not going to end well. And how do we fix that? We're very fortunate.
So I think that also goes into the chain of events thing, where if you didn't have the chain of events, you would have maybe had a better sense and essay of where you were, where the power was, and whatever. That's why these chain of events things end up killing people.
Absolutely. And not only that, but once again, we went out to do a hammerhead. We didn't go out to do an inverted accelerated flat spin.
Right.
Yeah, and so once again, it's a surprise. The other things, the lack of the shoulder harnesses, the lack of communication, those all complicated what turned out into what should have just been like, oh, no big deal. But add those things in, and it became a big deal.
Okay, cool. Pester.
Yeah.
Closing thoughts.
Did I go away? I don't see me, just so you know. I don't see you guys anymore.
I see you.
Okay, good.
Still
closing thoughts. It's like, I'd go out there and think about that and go, how stupid is it to go out there and take the airplane and do that? But really, it's not. I mean, it's like, hey, it's fun. Let's go out and play with the airplane. That's what we were going to go do. But really kind of know your limitations, but don't let that stop you either. I mean, I punched out of a Tomcat, and, we still play with the airplanes. But big thing, I've been flying with Mark Levy. The guy is absolutely unbelievable pilot, by the way. Probably third best pilot that I know. But we go into that situation, and, he says, as soon as that thing breaks vertical, you're done. Just pull it to idle and let it go. And like Mark said, let that thing just fall through. Again, I have that experience now. I didn't at the time.
Awesome. Flex?
Yeah, same thing. And, all lessons learned, we've hit them hard. And the big thing is, don't let that scare you. Don't let it scare you away from yaks, because I know some people go, oh my gosh, I'm afraid of this airplane. No, it's very difficult to get it there. And if you do decide you want to try this, go out with a very experienced instructor in these accelerated flat spins and practice them. If you do a couple of them, you're going to go, okay, yeah, it's not something I want to do every day. But
it's not something you want to do down low.
Yeah, no, that's what you're doing that at 9,000 to 10,000 AGL. The airplane will get there. It'll do just fine.
Awesome.
Absolutely.
All right, guys. Well, listen, I really appreciate you taking your time to share the story. I know you've shared it many times, which is great because that's the culture that we want to definitely impart with all pilots and especially in the RPA. So I really appreciate you joining me today, and fly safe.
Thanks.
And lastly, Gil, just something else I forgot about. There's a lot of resources out there for information on Yak 52s. I talked about Savarisa's website. RPA's got a bunch of stuff. If you're going to buy one of these, know the airplane a little bit more before you buy it. Don't just take it on a whim.
Oh, come on. Not that bad.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks.
You're welcome. Thanks. See you.